Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we'll look at the Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K short. This is going to be In Defiance of Fate by a fan with too much time. Now, a lot of the shorts come in at different time periods in the story, so some have been after events I'm pretty sure have even happened already. Some have been more or less around the same time period. Others I have absolutely no idea about, specifically the ones that go to Coruscant and involve Dr. Shia, and I don't know where those are in the timeline. I know they're later, but where? Hell if I know. This, I don't know what we're going to get into here, but I've enjoyed all of them, so I'm going to just jump right in and kind of assume it's going to be good, which is why you should hit up the link below to the original video and subscribe to Fan with Too Much Time, because 1, you haven't already, fix that. 2, if you have, neat, thanks. Let's get started. In collaboration with the stellar talent of Michael Wilson, aka Pa. You know, Fan doesn't usually have it go too fast by Prater98. Oh, nice. Okay, we're dropping back to this fight. So is it at the conclusion or more of their actual battle before Fan ended it? I don't know, but this is actually not what I was expecting. I'm really okay with this.
One step countering the next, air-pounding concussions raining away from their blows and parries, each one a vain trumpet. Each one seeking to be the sound of victory, yet only sounding to call attention to the display. The librarian and the Jedi...
Okay, I don't usually just say this flat out, but god damn, this guy's voice. I am getting so much classical audiobook narrator vibes right now. And honestly, I'm fine with that. Fan has a very distinct style, and I've become inured to it just because I've watched it develop from the initial videos all the way up to where we're at now. And I know there's tons more coming. And frankly, the fact that his voice acting has gone from I'm recording a song, or like not a song, my audio, to I am a fucking voice actor, and it gets better. People keep telling me it does, and I'm just going to take their word at it because I've already seen that development. Makes sense to me. This just right off the bat just hit you in the face with a completely different voice, and wow. Mostly what I'm saying is that it has that good cadence, which doesn't sound like a really big thing to say, except most people, when they read really fast, and they just try and rush it all out to get as many words out as they can and just go as fast as they can to see what they can say, because they're always right there, and they're trying to read as fast as they can speak, and they speak as fast as they read, except they don't. People can read a lot faster than they can speak, so you have to intentionally slow down your words to show what's there. It also helps because if you're trying to rush with one, you can read things a lot faster, so you'll end up rushing, but you'll miss words that you wouldn't if you were trying to speak slower to give your mind time to keep up with what's on the page. This guy is doing it right because he has a very steady cadence, and you can't see at any point wherever he's getting that speed wrong. It sounds very intentional, which is a really important thing because it's freaking hard. Part of the master's program I went through was multiple public readings in cafes for random strangers who were more than happy to boo because it was funny. And family who also did it for the same reason. You know who you are. So yeah, just hearing well done immediately is just really cool from a random person I've never heard before.
I dueled ferociously, blade and stave casting shadows across light and spearing blinding eminence through otherwise still darkness.
Ooh.
Yet for all the glory and wonder of their conjoined skill, the pace of their dance was clear, and the song which made their rhythm was more and more rapidly singing one and only one man to victory.
Rapidly singing one in one piece of their dance. And that's why they have the haunting background music to go along with the narration itself. Well played on that one.
Saffron. But it did not yet play loudly enough to overcome Obi-Wan's ironclad discipline.
The Force is bullshit when done well.
Tore away such meanings from the sheen of his own thoughts, leaving his mind clear to continue the contest. The Jedi Master still fought to win, contending in order to strike him down and, if possible, strike him dead. But even the goal of his battle was fading from his conscious thoughts as he found himself sacrificing and dedicating all of his being to the contest before him.
Oh, that's interesting. This is... I'm not sure if it's because it's shorting so much, but it looks like the screen is shaking as it gets smaller. I'm not sure... I'm almost certain that is an effect of it going smaller. but it kind of is interesting in the timing, and it might be completely coincidental. And honestly, if it is, well done. Just really not happy coincidence there. That is, he's talking about the reason fading. It almost sounds like a niggling doubt. I mean, as far as Space Marines getting down, they're going to do what they do regardless. But it's just like, I'm doing this to win, but he's still in the way, and I haven't won yet. And you just see the shaking of the frame. Again, it probably is just a random coincidence that as you're hearing a tiny bit of as close to a Space Marine gets his doubt without going full on heresy, you get a bit of the shaking image. It's a nice coincidence. I actually really approve it. I'm glad no one edited that in post.
Body, soul, and thought all were being consumed himself in the precise and lethal flow of combat, sinking further and further into the core of his guardian training, becoming the stone upon which the ocean must crash. In the center of this melee, deep within his zone, as it were, Kenobi had become one with his blade, and the lines between him and his environment had blurred nearly beyond recognition.
See, these are moments I really like, because the Force is good at one really neat thing that a lot of psychers in 40K can't do for very obvious reasons. They can fully zone in and just immerse themselves in the Force because it's safe to do that. It's just hard because it requires a level of concentration that you can get in 40K. But doing that usually means om nom nom by elder monstrosities that like your fleshy and not fleshy bits because they taste good with ketchup. And sometimes, if they're monstrous, radishes. Not horseradish, just radishes. They're monsters. You just got to accept that. But I love just seeing this moment of someone actually pulling this out and doing it well. Every time the Star Wars Expanded Universes, old or new, does it, it's usually done in a really hyped moment. And they haven't overdone it because it isn't usually how they like to use the Force. Just immersing yourself and losing yourself to it. Almost like a meditative state beyond most people actually getting to. It's just well done.
Against any foe of his past, he would have been triumphant, and perhaps easily so.
Mm-hmm.
But as the Jedi Master rallied himself against the foe he now faced, all he could sense was a sickening sense of growing clarity, for he was forced ever to be on the defensive, ever the stone and never the ocean, always the shield but too rarely the sword.
I mean, defensive battles are great unless you're not able to strike back at someone who can keep up with it. Yeah, also, apparently those initial sparks of doubt were on Obi-Wan's side, because it was coming from his profile and not Safran's, which is weird because they mentioned Safran. Okay, one, what's up with my mustache today? Two, I thought this was initially from Safran's point of view, but then we switched over to here. So we're doing multiple perspectives, aren't we? In many previous videos, I've made my opinion of that style of writing known. I don't like it when it's set up in such a way that you can switch between one person to the next and you just have to keep track of it. But sometimes it doesn't quite work. It's hard enough when you're doing a written scene. And God knows you could fuck that up easily. Just like make a few mistakes, don't give the right attribution in the right place. Or if someone misses it because it's not the most obvious section and you immediately jump into someone else's head and it's just not clear and you lose the thought process altogether. And it doesn't make sense because you're assuming thoughts in one person's head than the other. If we're doing that here, you know what? It's a valid way to write. I personally don't like it because it's so easy to fuck up. Fan is good enough. I think he can do that. And he does seem to put a lot of work in here. I've very rarely ever found edits or things that need to be changed. And a lot of times it's just my own personal take, but my reasons for it stand still. Fan is good enough that I don't think he's made any mistakes that really lead to my dislike, but that doesn't change my own personal bias on this.
It was not a pace he could keep up forever. Obi-Wan was performing feats he'd never attempted before.
And the music is changing.
Stringing new maneuvers into old techniques as the need arose, and yet he was countered every time. Not always easily, but effectively enough to give the Master a sense of his opponent's depth of experience.
The fact that you're even holding your own against someone who's probably fought longer than you've been alive considerably, that is not... I mean, he's putting up a good show. But unless something breaks a stalemate, he'll eventually wear down. Probably both of them. But previously, another one, Safran said that he was wearing down because his usage of the, well, I guess the warp was way more taxing on him and normally wouldn't be an issue. But this is a guy whose physical abilities are being held up And neither side seems to realize it's a battle of attrition. They think it's a battle of attrition favoring the other person without realizing that they're holding up pretty well too. Granted, it really does come down to, does the Force refresh Obi-Wan faster than Safran can force the warp to refresh him, or it burns him out? Granted, it's not actively trying to eat him and nom him in the head, so that probably helps. But does he realize that, because those kind of thoughts are probably beat out of a Space Marine Psyker's head for admittedly good reasons of it nomming their head? I don't know. I'm actually kind of fascinated by it.
The Jedi Master came to an innate realization through this, coming to understand that even while he himself invented techniques and strategies that were new to himself, perhaps new to the entire Jedi Order, they were not new enough. How many times had this Astartes creature performed exterminations like this?
Oh, yeah, because a lot of Space Marine librarians wear blue, even if they're not. Sorry, I saw the Imperial Fist logo, but then blue, and it took me a second to realize, oh, no, wait. Shoulder pad. It's like Tech Marines wearing red except for the chapter, or Death Watch wearing their chapter colored pauldron, and then just black for the rest. Admittedly, that's one of the coolest color schemes, and I would like to get into it just to paint them, but details aside, it took me a second to realize, no, not an Ultramarine.
No matter the answer, overwhelming hurdle to overcome in the fight, but it was not. They were both matched in many ways, but Obi-Wan bore no strength-enhancing armor, had no force-repelling talismans, and could draw on only a fraction of the combat experience of his foe.
And barely a fraction.
Obi-Wan gave everything and more, but so too did this warrior who contended with him, who threatened all he stood to defend. Obi-Wan put all his decades of battle behind his blade, reliving his life in subconscious cycles, his soul studying his memory to writing every last possible lesson it could from it.
Damn.
In response, the librarian answered with his own centuries of warfare, and with his memory made perfect, he did not need to reach his edge to access the full breadth of his knowledge.
Yeah, this does kind of hammer home. It is a fight between people who are more or less at the pinnacle, so they can do without going beyond into levels of what the fuck. Also, if I randomly cut here, it's because a cat is about to walk on my keyboard. So, possible cat pictures incoming. But no, not on that one girl. She's cute, but she likes to hit on the escape button. How her paw always finds that, I have no idea. Good girl. I'm petting a kitten. This is a good day. But where was I? Oh, yeah. So basically we have the ideal here of Safran as being a pillar of physical mortal might. But even though he has all the psychic, don't hit the escape button. Like all the psychic power, it's burning him and it will tax him over time. So he was looking at it, that's the downside to him. And then Obi-Wan's looking at it as he is not nearly as physically strong or experienced on the mortal side, but his connection to the Force is probably a lot safer. So he can just keep drawing that shit in all day. So it's literally two people on the opposite sides. And now she's batting at my screen where I have my recording going because she sees my mouse. Oh, come here, Tess. Oh, you is a cute kitty. Nope. No. Say hi, Tess. Oh, don't eat the mic. Good girl. You okay, Tess? Good girl. Kittens are awesome. Nope, don't eat my mouse. She sees the mouse on the screen, and it keeps trying to jump on the screen to get it. This has happened multiple times. I have to hide it. Moving on.
The Jedi Master blocked a horizontal swipe, spinning like a dervish as he absorbed the Force from it and struck, cleaving shadows with light, grunting, spraying sweat from his moist hair as he was brought up short by a sharp parry, bending back and avoiding one counter-strike, then parrying another. All the while, his mind also dueled, not against the towering form of the Astartes before him, or against the intrusions of his doubts and flaws,
because if he gives into those,
slick, shark-like form of the librarian's own attacking mind.
Oh!
It drove for Kenobi,
So it's
psychically
literally the
assailing the Jedi
psychic
in
fight
moments
as
where
well.
even the slightest mistake or malign decision could spell disaster.
Even faster than the physical
Obi-Wan had
one.
thwarted each attempt thus far, and had even struck back with his own mental attacks.
Now that is impressive and does kind of hammer home that Safran's infinitely superior physically, but Obi-Wan can at least hold his own on the warp/force level. Nice.
Yet even these small blows struggled to be called victories, even small ones, for the Space Marine had not been so much as required to personally address Kenobi.
Sorry, I have a cat trying to eat power cables. I would like cat alive. No, Tess, don't do that. Don't eat the power cable, nor that power cable. Why do I have suicidal kittens? Okay, now she's just staring at her reflection. Her safe.
Kenobi's psychic counters, hiding his own vulnerable thoughts behind mind wards born of technical or ritual production, all of which were built directly into his armor. Obi-Wan found that psychically attacking was incredibly taxing and had left him far more vulnerable, forcing him to abandon the tactic and therefore ceding one battlefront to the Imperial. Yet in spite of that loss,
that would be the cat stepping on the keyboard.
clarity was his.
No, don't shoot that one either. No. 1 second. Yes. Come on, girl. Come on. No, don't shoot that one either. No, girl, just stay here. Good girl, Tess. Good girl. I've got you. Come on, good girl. Stop chewing power cores that would shock you. I would like you alive, please. Thank you. I have found a flaw in my plan. Holding kitten so she doesn't electrocute herself requires 2 hands, and I need to start pressing play. Ha! Tess, promise not to chew any more power cords. I see your tail wagging. It's chewing the shaky thing. You will go for a power cord, aren't you? Kittens. Good girl, Tess. Please don't try and kill yourself on power cords. I would like you alive. Oops.
And it did not lie. The flow of this battle was against the Jedi, and he soon found himself unable to do much more than fend the librarian off, waiting and watching for a mistake or flaw in his opponent's technique. Yet no matter how much he fought, no such chink in his armor seemed forthcoming. Around them the Jedi grew scarcer and scarcer, escaping or helped to escape by other Jedi as the two combatants did their dreadful battle. Yet in spite of the obvious danger, most of them fled more slowly than they should have, bogged down by the sights and sounds and senses before them. The display put on by the
Oh, that's actually a really cool moment. Like all of them just watching Obi-Wan, who wasn't the most powerful swordmaster there, holding his own. Sorry, just the idea of Obi-Wan getting a moment of whoa. Just I like that. Just yeah.
Two vying adversaries was a feast to the warriors' eyes, and many could not help but take their taste while it lasted. Each swing of Safran's stave rippled the air like roasting flames, the librarian using both hands to whip about with the broad head of his bewitched weapon. Across from him, Obi-Wan was a ceaseless spinning disk of blue energy, whirling over and then under and then over again. He avoided the first flurry of soul-smashing strikes before catching Safran's flank with his blade and driving his body thrown by the force of the swing. The Jedi was sent away before landing and rebounding gracefully off a pillar and then the floor, shards of broken armor and the robes beneath trailing in his weightless wake.
Wait, did he just... Ooh!
Of broken armor and the robes beneath
that did get him.
In his weightless wake. Obi-Wan had become transcendent. He had become grace. He was the definition of power. And yet he was also not enough. The librarian matched his speed, driving deep, molten footprints as he tracked the Jedi's evasive legwork, mirroring the movements of the lithe Jedi. He shifted about and stepped as though the armor which enveloped him did not restrict or reduce his movement at all.
Yeah.
And the sleight of it constantly threatened to cast an uncanny net of fear over any observer. Those...
Oh, okay. That is actually a really cool description, because on 40K, they have a easy term called transhuman fear, or transhuman... I think it's like transhuman fear. It's just like that fear of something that big being that terrifying. I know I'm using the wrong phrase, but it's the right terminology. Well, wrong terminology, right description. But we don't use that term here because it's from the Star Wars side. We're in Obi-Wan's perspective right now, and we're jumping in and we're seeing him going, okay, shit, it's moving like it's a part of him. And on our side, we know 40K has the Black Carapace, so it literally is feeling like a part of him. That's why it moves like a part of him, because it is literally wired into his body through an implanted mesh underneath the skin, which is, honestly, needlessly 40K grimdark. There's easier ways to do that kind of shit. But they're also incredibly stupid and still being worked on in reality. The fact that they're actually being worked on in reality is also kind of grimdark in its own right, but we're not going to get into that because that way lies madness. More than usual. And I say that for Super Eye Patch Wolf videos. But it's just really cool to see that exact phrase, that exact type of idea being portrayed in a different viewpoint, but being given all the way to describe someone initially reacting like, whoa. It just makes more sense when described this way than just given the quick phrase to move on from. I like seeing that little innovation to show something from an outside perspective that you would know otherwise. It's just well done.
Knights who had lived by the saber and its forms drank in the displays with near rapt attention. For those Jedi more inclined towards the mysteries of the Force, this was no less fascinating a contest. The psychic battle which waged between the two was nearly as impressive as the martial contest the warriors were simultaneously engaged in. Kenobi was a smooth sphere, leaving no purchase, no place to strike, and yet the Space Marine had formed a lance out of his imperially conditioned mind, striking dead center for Obi-Wan's soul again and again, testing the very limits of the Jedi Master's serenity. The other Jedi around them watched, and most would remember. Whether they carried themselves from that place or were carried by others, they would remember Kenobi's valiant stand and the strength of the monster which overcame him.
Oh, that phrase, man. There was always a chance if there was an interrupt, but saying he's overcome means that interrupt's not going to happen. So as much as Kenobi gets that moment of glory, yeah, he's not overcoming the librarian. On the other hand, overcoming does not imply dead, so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that he blocked wrongly, he parried wrongly, and only broke his shin. Only is important there because Space Marine Librarian, empowered by the warp, actively trying to probably have fun, but also to kill him. This guy sounds like both are the same thing to him, so it's more or less mutually the same. And all he took was a broken bone. Anyone else who was not massively overhyped, like a Primarch or an Orc who's got all the toughness due to being a WOG boss. This is a level of squishy human go pop. Squishy human didn't go pop. That is really damn impressive. I just love that little bit in there showing like, yeah, you fucked up because you made a small mistake. Unlike everyone else, you survived it and you still has body as opposed to everyone else being splattered on the wall. It is actually important to remember that's the level of power this guy's throwing around.
And the resulting force had broken his shin in half. It had been one mistake. Just one.
Still the bad one, though.
The Space Marine paused, spinning his stave upright and letting its butt strike the ground. He loomed tall, triumphant, coming forward and rearing back a massive boot to stomp on Obi-Wan's legs, the force of the blow shaking all present and rattling the deck. But Saffron could only growl in frustration as he surveyed his handiwork, or lack thereof.
Oh?
The Jedi was no longer prone beneath the dents under his boots.
Pushed.
Another Jedi, A Xenos woman with dark skin and sporting bizarre head
People
growths
coming back to
charged
fight.
across the room towards them and slid past in the final moment, grabbing Kenobi by his robe and hauling him out from danger's closing
I don't even know who
jaws just
this one
as they
is.
slammed shut. They skidded to a halt, barely
Wait.
jaws Jubby by his robe and hauling him out from danger's closing jaws just as they slammed shut.
Okay. When I heard slam shut, for some reason, my mind went that I must have missed a scene about a door closing. I don't know why my mind went there. That's just weird. Also, just this entire series is pointing out I know so few Republic-era Jedi. I thought I knew a lot of them. I am so very wrong about that. There are so more than I knew.
They skidded to a halt,
So many more.
barely controlled, both facing Saffron as they arrested their movement. This new woman crouched behind the beaten Jedi Master, arms wrapped protectively around his torso, eyes glowing Akkadian shade in the darkness and the orrery. Obi-Wan could feel Master Ali connecting with him even then, transferring her life force into him, mending his injuries and soothing his fatigue.
Wait, is this a healer?
But he knew that she would not be able to work quickly enough, a fact that became evident as Saffron began to approach them. His boots cracked the floor as he came for the Jedi, only to pause a moment later when another form stepped between him.
And this is the moment where you realize Saffron, as much as he is fighting to kill Obi-Wan, he isn't going at this as hard as he could. For one, someone walked in front of him and he paused. This is a Space Marine librarian. He could probably just kill or push through anything. He doesn't have to pause. He can immediately attack without pausing. The thought process is fast enough there that it doesn't require a pause. I think this is probably his version of respect for a very competent opponent. So that kind of works, and I like it. I might be misreading this, but based on the idea of his character, this very much seems like something he would do where he doesn't really, not so much doesn't want to kill Obi-Wan. He does. He would do that in a heartbeat. But I think it's a form of respect that he didn't immediately slaughter the Xenos woman who stepped back within range of his psychic fuck you-ness, because Psyker, it's literally a thing they do. I mean, smiting is literally what they call it. So, yeah, granted, it'd probably be harder to smite a Jedi because they could probably fight back, but, you know, details. It's just nice that having other people jump in, he's allowing it to happen. Because I don't think he's fighting against them nearly as hard as he is fighting against Obi-Wan. That said, I might be misreading this. Maybe he's exhausted more than I think. But it does feel like he's letting this happen because Obi-Wan was such an amazing combatant. Like, pushing a Space Marine librarian is not something you see every day, unless you're against monstrosities who outclass most things and could probably hold their own against Primarchs. Not always, but some of them are at that level.
And them, yet another Jedi. The small, willowy form of the elderly Master Jocasta Nu revealed itself.
The librarian?
Saber active and poised to
I forgot
defend
all
the
about her.
members of her venerable order.
Swarming like maggots.
Saffron cursed under his breath. His brows furrowed, betrayed his deep frustration. 2 more? How many Psykers did this fiendish Republic have to field?
Admittedly, still far less than Psykers in the Imperium. Yeah, when you really think about it, the size of the galaxies, Star Wars has just really deflated numbers. Although I think that's partially a product of people when they created the Star Wars universe. Lucas, anyone involved, didn't really understand just how big a single galaxy is. And honestly, no one really does. When you really think about the numbers, how many planets are involved, how many stars are involved, the sheer amounts of variations it can, and then when you have space flight, so just artificial constructions, which do exist on a macro level in Star Wars and the ancient lore, and then brought forward into the present lore and kind of ignored because, admittedly, they all get destroyed for plot points. The Star Wars, I can't speak today. The Star Wars side is just really deflated in size. But again, that's a product of its creation because numbers are hard. Hell, by that same metric, The Imperium is also guilty of that because numbers are hard. Hundreds of trillions is still technically a small portion. If there was one per person per star, that would probably be more accurate, but big numbers are hard to conceptualize.
The Space Marine shook the unworthy thoughts from his mind
Million
and instead
worlds.
focused on the force standing before and against him. The woman was obviously aged, straight back though she was.
Did not know she had a
Her
lightsaber.
white robes were speckled in red, something Saffron surmised was not the result of a striking, intentional aesthetic. A long, rectangular box was slung across the bony shoulders and back of the old master.
Box?
Held fast by a strap which clung to both ends of the box.
A scroll?
She seemed an absurdly small figure in the shadow of the massive librarian, a detail which did not escape the warrior she now faced.
Have I truly passed your orders so forcefully that you are bringing old women out of retirement to slow me down?
Yes, actually, yes, literally that. That is completely accurate. Also, I don't think Jedi retire. I have absolutely no idea about that. Can Jedi retire? I know that's a stupid question, but I'm literally thinking Star Wars has been around so long. There's probably someone out there who's like, oh yeah, this Jedi retired at this point. But all the Jedi I think about not being Jedi anymore quit, and not usually because, okay, I'm ready to die. I want to just go relax and do something else. It's usually a matter of the Republic has fallen. I'm disillusioned with the Jedi. I don't want to be a Jedi anymore. Or Ahsoka, where that happened well before that point. So, sorry, random tangent, but I'm actually kind of curious about that.
It will avail you nothing but further humiliation.
Saffron said, stepping forward and spinning his stave. Jocasta, in turn, raised a single, thin, gray eyebrow. A proper Jedi never truly retires.
Well, there's my question there, although that does imply the proper part.
Besides, I have no intention of doing battle with the likes of you,
Yeah?
she said,
Distraction?
affecting a distinctly unimpressed air, wrinkling her nose at the Space Marine. Saffron grinned his response, a vicious battle lust showing through the expression. He sped forward instead of speaking further.
Yep, there's the part. This is him enjoying it. So as much as he's frustrated with not getting the kill, he's enjoying this. He's giving them the time because it's a form of enjoyment for him. I know he's not a Khorne worshiper, but goddamn, Khorne is probably looking at this going like, oh yeah.
Raising his stave high before swinging it downward, intent on hammering the old woman into the floor of the ship like an offensive protruding nail.
But
His strike, wreathed in psychic force, did little more than fan the air before Jocasta's face, burning some hairs in her eyebrows and little else. Saffron's feet scraped and screeched against the metal ground, but not towards the Jedi woman, but away. He labored against the southern pull, attempting with all his might to complete
pull? I was assuming a push, but that means someone got behind. Oh, who else is playing
his
now?
final strides, swiping again at the elder before him and remaining just out of her range. From behind Saffron, emerging from the cover of two pillars which held up the wide room, two more Jedi appeared.
Who do we got?
A dark-skinned human man with a purple blade in one hand, and a tall, bestial Xenos holding a glowing blue saber staff. Both had their free hands.
I mean, obviously Mace Windu. But I have absolutely no idea which bestial Xenos with a blue blade is this one. I'm probably going to be like, oh, that's obvious in hindsight, but I'm just pulling a blank on this one.
Extended toward the epistolary, fingers curled as they held.
But this is Mace Windu, who already fought. Wait, no, Mace Windu was on the planet's surface. This can't be Mace Windu.
Held him just back from his lethal strike. Jocasta Nu broke her stance, face remaining a stern mask as she nodded in the direction of the two other masters. They, however, would be more than happy.
Maybe it
to
is Windu,
sink
and I was
your
just
barbarity,
wrong.
the old woman said, the air of disdain.
Oh, no, wait. it wasn't Windu. It was just references to Windu through Alea Sakura. Alea Sakura? I actually don't know how to say her name. So it probably wasn't her. Maybe she was talking. It's been so long, I might be just misremembering completely. So he wasn't on the surface then.
About her as thick as water.
But he also channels the dark side, so this might be more familiar to
throwing
Saffron.
a pillar of telekinetic might against Saffron.
Damn.
That act succeeded in driving a roar of defiance from the warrior as he was suddenly pressed, holding his ground for only a few seconds before he was thrown backwards, falling toward the two Jedi Masters and their hungry, burning blades.
The fact that she could push around a Space Marine librarian partially highlights that not a lot of people did that in the Republic. In all the movies, at least, it didn't really come up that often. Yeah, when you think about it, it just really wasn't there. Gameplay had it, but in the movies, wasn't really a thing. Hell, even the old school 80s Star Wars, was it the 80s or the 70s? Like Empire, where Vader is throwing around things, shows more force usage in a fight outside of the physical body, partially because effects at that time were what they were, and partially because they kind of just focused on everything in the Republic side, on the physical aspect at least. In the entire, why throw something when you can just jump closer with lightsaber? I mean, it's a valid point, but still. Huh. Ah, don't touch that.
Head of his
Another cat jumping on wires. Don't touch that, Triss. Yoink. Hey, kitty, kitty. Yeah, just stay away from the wires that are probably not something you should touch.
his ground for only a few Jedi.
Oh, was that the end?
Burning blades.
Ah, it was the end of that segment. What?
With our swords, we will forge new stories to strike the gods that haunt us.
I don't recognize this. I know it's 40K, but I don't recognize this intro. What game is this from?
You might see me as weak, but I will show you what lies behind my eyes.
I don't know what this is. Is that the Sardaukar chant from Dune? This is a year ago. That very well could be. Nice! Sorry, any reference to Dune at all, I'm a big fan of. Could just be throat singing as well, but...
We will embrace our suffering, soothe our scars of grief,
Falling
and
glass
break
shards?
their siege of our minds.
I don't know where this is
You
from.
may see them as gods.
Oh, there's Abaddon. That's definitely Traitor, because no one else really has that look. I hear bells, but I don't see the kitties. That means they're up to something. Hopefully they're not chewing on more power cords.
We will show you what lies behind their eyes.
Oh, that was a creepy image. All this replaced with cleats. A storm approaches. Oh, so that's probably the next... Wait. Is the storm approaches actually Chaos getting involved because they brought up Abaddon? Its herald is already among you. And on that note, I'm going to go cat wrangle because they are deciding to chew on all the power cores today. If anyone knows how I can get them to stop doing that, I would really appreciate it because they keep trying to go for the ones that only have a lot of current inside of them. Making sure she's not chewing another one, and she isn't at the moment. Kitties are adorable, though. But why do they go for the cords? More importantly, I love this. I love the fight. I love the fact that the other Jedi finally pulled themselves in. We saw the conclusion of the fight. We got this tiny little segment that didn't really fit with the don't chew that wire. Oh, wow. Cats, man. But we got into the segment. We saw Obi-Wan's fight. It didn't fit with the other segments, so I understand why this is its own separate portion, because the fight didn't really fit with the locations of everything else. It didn't fit in Beyond Axum because technically it's still within Axum, and we had kind of moved away from everything happening in orbit whenever the ship started crashing down, and that was such a major moment. And this just kind of fell by the wayside, but it's way too important to leave gone. So a small little side story just focusing on that makes a lot of sense. And it was good because there wasn't much left to it, but it was still a really impressive fight. And it showed the other masters are just going to eventually come in. There's going to be more people coming in. Obi-Wan is the Rock there. And for all of the damage he took, he stood up. And frankly, if him and Windu were fighting at the same time and they were able to work together, I'd actually say they'd have a good chance of winning, because a really good shield and a really good sword is effective. And that's what it's what Obi-Wan didn't have at the time. He could defend, he could hold his own, but he couldn't strike back. Windu, I don't think on his own might not be able to, survive without drawing on some shit. And because Fan previously mentioned that Windu's basically already fallen to the dark side and just hasn't realized he hadn't died in canon before that really could come to fruition. This is probably not going to go well. Yeah. Well, now, we'll have to see what happens. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up and wish me luck keeping the kitties from trying to chew on something with a lot of current in it. Dear God, why do they only go for the ones like that? I don't know. Ugh. They're cute, though. Otherwise, link below. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.